Hello my friends, in this video we'll be taking a look at the autosum DNA results, predicted phenotype traits, and G25 of a Bronze Age sample from Greece, Log02. It is a Helladic sample. This sample is female and her mitochondrial lineage is H55A. Now let's start with the G25. With G25, this individual is closest to North Italians and Greeks. So this sample is actually pretty northern, and it has a lot of Indo-European or Yamnaya ancestry. So this sample is an Indo-European sample, and Helladics are Indo-European people. They are an early form of Greek speakers. You could say they are archaic Greeks, and this individual is an archaic Greek, so she is an Indo-European speaker. Now let's move on to her phenotype, what she looks like. We're gonna start with Nashakot. Let's zoom out. Hold on. So in terms of eye color, she's predicted to have brown eyes at 68.2.5% likelihood. There is a pretty significant odds for dark brown eyes and hazel eyes as well, and very little odds for blue eyes or green eyes or blue eyes with an amber center. That is pretty much very, very improbable. She most likely has black hair color. The odds of other hair colors such as dark brown or light brown or like blonde or red is very low. So she most likely has black hair, and she's predicted to have an olive skin tone, olive or Mediterranean skin tone. The odds of other skin tones like white or palest or dark brown are very low. The odds of light brown skin are quite high at 9%. It's pretty significant, but still, most likely she has olive skin tone. For hair texture, by the way, I'm still getting caught up on G25 model. Just think about this. She's scoring 32% Yamnaya admixture. That is a lot of Yamnaya admixture. I think that is more than what's typical for Greeks even today. She's even more Yamnaya than Greeks are today. Like modern Greeks are less Yamnaya than this. So she is very northern. She has a lot of northern admixture, a lot of Indo-European admixture for sure. For nose shape, she's scoring snub shaped nose at 75% odds. And when it comes to coloring related variants found in the file, she definitely has a lot of blue eye, blonde hair, and pale skin variants in HERC2 in these variations. But she does have blue eye haplotype 1, but she does not have blue eye haplotype 2. So if we run her through Snipper 3, I think she would score probably brown eyes, probably brown. It is possible, just based on this, that she would score hazel. She might score hazel eyes, actually. We can check. We can check. I think I should check right now. I will check it right now. But it is going to be brown or hazel eyes. Let's see. We can see right now what she scores with Snipper 3. I expect probably brown, but it might be hazel as well. Oh, it's hazel. Yeah. So she actually scores hazel eyes with Snipper 3. 9.42 times more likely green or hazel than brown, and 940,000 times more likely green or hazel than blue. So definitely she's quite dark in terms of eye color. But anyway, let's move on to her phenotype oracle. And the closest phenotypes to her is this, followed by this, which is Pamiriid phenotype, followed by this, which is, I guess, is a Iranian phenotype. To me, this looks, I would say, Southeast Iranian, followed by this, which is another Pamiriid phenotype. And for the mixtures of phenotype, let me like enlarge the picture so that you can see the female versions, because she's a female. So you can see the closest mixture, the two-way mixture, is this plus this. And what I did actually for this video is I took the female morph on top and the female morph on the bottom for the closest mixture where the distance is 0.77. I took the female morphs on top and the bottom and I actually morphed them together using facemorph.me. And this is the closest female morph to this individual. So you could say this is the predicted phenotype for her using my software. Trait Predictor's predicted phenotype for her is this. Does this look very Greek to you? I don't know. I think it looks maybe Turkish. maybe Armenian, maybe Turkish. But there is a lot of Greek women who look like this as well, and Italians and Greeks and Italians. There's plenty of Greek and Italian women who look. It looks a little bit Mexican as well, actually. A little bit of a Mexican vibe too. But anyway, let's return back to the video. Let's check the ethnic calculator results with my own ethnicity calculator. That might be interesting to see as well. And here, wow, that's cool. She is closest to Hash Firuz Bronze Age I-4243, followed by Gleb Sviatoslavovich, which is an individual with a lot of like Middle Eastern shifts, followed by West 56 Dolens Germany Bronze Age, followed by North Germanic, North Italian, Svaneti Georgian, Ashkenazi Jew, Azerbaijan Neolithic. So it's kind of like all over the place. And the closest mixture is Talens Germany plus Hash Firuz BA, Talens Germany plus Gleb Sviatoslavovich, very interesting. French plus Syrian Arab, and Syrian Arab plus Bailuli Lithuania medieval. Right, interesting models. Definitely interesting models, but it's kind of hard to understand what they say. All right, but it is a good prediction. 606 S&Ps. It is a good prediction. Like if you look at two French individuals plus Syrian Arab, you can understand that it's like a mixture of Middle Eastern plus Northern European, or Syrian Arab plus Bailuli Lithuania medieval. That's also kind of the same thing. Middle Eastern plus Northern European is what pretty much the prediction is with my trade predictor's ethnic calculator. But and there's more of the same here. Satsurblia hunter-gatherer plus West 56, French 2 plus Satsurblia hunter-gatherer, North Germanic plus Syrian Arab. So yeah, I guess that's what it says. It's just a mixture of Middle Eastern and European is what they score with my trade predictor. All right, let's close that. Now let's see the biomarkers results. All right, so this individual's got a lower level of vitamin D, which is pretty bad. You don't want to have lower levels of vitamin D. You want to have higher. Higher levels of LDL cholesterol, which is really bad. You want to have lower levels of that. And lower levels of HDL cholesterol, which is also bad. You want to have higher levels of that. So already 3 things that are kind of unfortunate. Higher levels of glucose, that's 4 things that are unfortunate, but still, that's not terrible. That's a pretty, this score is pretty close to the average. Average levels of hemoglobin, below average blood pressure, that's good, but blood pressure is one of those things that I don't really like talking about because it's not something you can accurately predict with DNA. It's kind of like really wishy-washy. It's better to go by like FTO gene panel and predict odds of obesity and odds of insulin resistance and odds of like cholesterol levels rather than trying to predict blood pressure directly. Average levels of iron in the blood. Well, so this individual does not have a predisposition to hemochromatosis. That's pretty good. And lower levels of sex hormone binding globulin. That's also pretty good. And lower levels of red blood cell count. That's okay. Average number of telomere base pairs. So average predisposition to average lifespan. And slightly above average height. That's pretty cool. All right. Now let's look at the polygenic risk scores and see what disease predispositions there are. So this individual has a predisposition to average odds of kidney stones, very low odds of arrhythmia and nodosum, and there is one S&P that was found, one risk variant that was found, but looks like despite having a risk variant for that, they still have very low odds for this condition. They have one risk variant for hemoglobin E disease, but despite that, they still have just an average, basically just an average risk score for that. They have average risk for migraine. They have average risk for lupus. They have low risk for gout. I noticed in my videos when I was compiling videos on various ancient cultures that Europeans tend to have low risk for gout. So maybe this is something that is just a European thing to have low risk for gout. This individual has low odds for eczema and low odds for various kinds of glaucoma, except for exfoliation glaucoma. We can look this up actually in the file. Let's go ahead and look this up. So they have a genotype for 10 times higher odds of glaucoma. It's not exactly 10 times higher odds. It's you have to be really you have to use like an open mind. You have to I don't know how to phrase this correctly. It's 10 times relative to the opposite genotype, right? So you have to look at the genotype distribution frequencies of the genotypes to figure out what it is relative to the average and not to the opposite genotype. So it's 10 times relative to the opposite genotype, but what is it relative to the average? So you have to figure out, you have to do some math, and you have to figure out what risk score it is relative to the average and not relative to the opposite genotype. So it's not 10 times, let me close this and this. So it's not 10 times the average risk. That's why here you see 1.55 times the average odds. It's not 10 times the average risk. Even though it's 10 times higher odds, it's not 10 times the average risk. There's below average odds for polycystic ovary syndrome. There's higher odds for cataracts. There's very high odds for age-related macular degeneration. There's lower odds for rheumatoid arthritis. There's lower odds for Tourette's. There's average odds for epilepsy. There's average odds for asthma. There's lower odds for leukemia. That's very cool. Actually, let's look up leukemia because I want to see what they score for that. Do they have any of the... They don't have any risk variance in NQ01, and yeah, looks like they don't have any risk variance in NQ01 for leukemia. That's really good. So leukemia looks like they're good for that. Vitiligo average score, myopia low score for myopia, so they're quite protected from myopia. They have a average score for corneal astigmatism. They have a low score for primary biliary cirrhosis. They have a low score for stroke, and they have a high score for male pattern hair loss. So that's typical, right? You know, it's I know it's typical because I built my calculator, right? I made all these calculations. I coded all of these predictors, all of these calculators, and I know the allele distribution for all these SNPs. I know that it's the way it's gonna work is that West Eurasians, Europeans, Middle Eastern people, Jews, Arabs, Finnish people, Swedish people, all of these West Eurasian populations are going to score higher for odds of male pattern hair loss with my trait predictor. So it's no surprise that he is, as a Greek, is scoring. Actually, she as a Greek is scoring higher for odds of male pattern hair loss. But good for her is that being a female, she's not going to be suffering from this condition. Good for her. So she's got average odds of atrial fibrillation, and she actually does have some risk variance for that. Pretty cool. She's got low odds for deep vein thrombosis, and she's got average odds for cardiovascular issues. All right, so she's got looks like average odds for ADHD, slightly below average odds for ADHD. No risk variance for ADHD and TAC1. She's got higher odds for depression. She's got short form 5-HTTLPR. All right, interesting. And she does have the risk haplotype for depression in MTHFR. So from that, we already know that she also is going to score higher for the homocysteine level panel because it has to do with not only the depression, but it also has to do with homocysteine levels. It's one of those genes that has to do with a lot of things together. So, but hold on, she scored. What did she score for cardiovascular? She scored slightly lower for cardiovascular issues panel. So she's got this genotype in MTHFR, but she's scoring below average for odds of cardiovascular issues. From that, we already know that she's probably got slightly below average odds for cardiovascular issues. So let's scroll up and see. Let's scroll up and see what she's got there. Let's scroll up and see what she's got for cardiovascular issues. Yeah, right. She's got lower odds of cardiovascular issues, as I said. She's got lower odds of cardiovascular issues. You could predict that because you could predict that very easily because of the high homocysteine levels. You would need to have lower odds of cardiovascular issues to score this for the cardiovascular issues panel. All right, so for bipolar, she's scoring very low for odds of bipolar. Very good. For schizophrenia, she's scoring very low for odds of schizophrenia. That's also very good. She is scoring very high for odds of type 2 diabetes. And she's scoring high for odds of type 1 diabetes. And she's scoring very low for odds of Alzheimer's. And very low for odds of multiple sclerosis. So she does not have any of the risk variants in HLA-DRB1. If she did, she wouldn't score this for multiple sclerosis. Two risk variants for breast cancer out of 24. And no really low risk for prostate cancer. So for 8q24 panel, it's probably going to look really good as well. But she does have a very high score for glioma, and she has low score for thyroid cancer. All right, she has 4 risk variants for JAK2 out of 12 total, so there is definitely some predisposition to polycythemia vera. This is the cancer that Boogie2988 was faking on YouTube for cloud. And here's the risk variance that she's got in JAK2. Now for testicular cancer, actually, she does have all the risk haplotypes for testicular cancer in KITO-G, so she's quite cooked when it comes to testicular cancer. But once again, good for her. She does not have testicles. Also good for her that testicular cancer is very well. These risk variants are very common, but the actual cancer itself is a lot less common than the variants are. So for all the people who have these variants, only a small portion of them actually end up developing the cancer. So it's not that big of a deal. But they do increase the likelihood of developing the cancer by a lot. Now, let's go over some of the rare conditions. Let's see what predispositions she has. Let's see. She has a rare variant for familiar hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Let's see what other rare variants she has. And she doesn't have any other rare variants. So I found a rare variant for familiar hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And that's it. I didn't find any other rare variants in her file. Let's go over her monogenic traits. It looks like she's got an intermediate phenotype, so intermediate dopamine levels and ability to tolerate stress, intermediate between the warrior and the warrior phenotype. So she's between the two extremes, between the high dopamine levels and low stress tolerance, and between the low dopamine levels and very high ability to tolerate stress and navigate stressful situations, but inability to function in low stress conditions. So she's somewhere in between these two extremes, which is good. I think that's the ideal dopamine profile for somebody living in the modern world. In her case, I think in the past the warrior profile was probably the ideal, but in the modern world, I think the intermediate profile is the best. Now she's got a predisposition to intermediate number of D2 dopamine receptors, which is also I think the ideal as well. So intermediate odds of such conditions as bipolar and schizophrenia, but she did score very low for odds of bipolar and schizophrenia. So because of other conditions, other genes, the effect of other genes, she scored lower. Actually, we can check that right now. There is ADCY2 associated with decreased bipolar risk. ADCY2 also lower odds of bipolar. There's also T-rank1. There's other genes here. Well, this does not affect the score, and this here also does not affect the score. But there's other genes here that also affect the score by some measure of effect. She's got predisposition to intermediate levels of 5-HT and serotonin, so intermediate odds of depression, and she did score intermediate odds of depression. She doesn't have any risk variance for dwarfism. And anything interesting here? No, not really. Let's scroll past this. So she's got a predisposition to intermediate odds of autism. She's got a predisposition to higher odds of lactose intolerance. So she's definitely not lactase persistent. She doesn't, in fact, out of these 8 variants for basically out of these variations that have to do with being lactase persistent, she does not carry a single variant for being lactase persistent. So she's completely lacking any variants for lactase persistence. She's definitely predisposed to being lactose intolerant. She's predisposed to higher level of empathy at 45.45%, based on these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 SNPs and OXTR. No variants for hemochromatosis and HFE, but I don't really even need to look at this because I already saw the iron levels. If she had any variants for hemochromatosis, she wouldn't score what she did for iron levels. No risk variants for Alzheimer's and APOE. She has a genotype that's rare that protects her from MS, but really, what we need to really focus on are the DRB1 genotypes and HLA, and she doesn't have any risk variants for multiple sclerosis and DRB1. which is really good to see. Okay. She has this genotype here, which is to decrease in the risk of myopia, which is really interesting. As far as I remember, this is a uniquely European genotype, and she did score very low for the odds of myopia. She does have an HLA risk variant for vitiligo, and she did score higher than average for the odds of vitiligo. Okay, she's got all European genotypes in ETAR, so European facial morphology, longer mid-face length, intermediate odds of protruding nasal bridge, larger nose size, and 2 genotypes for thicker eyebrows. So, in terms of eyebrow thickness, she likely has thicker eyebrows, thicker than this image at least. Now, 2 genotypes for micropenis. She doesn't have a single variant for micropenis. Really good to see. Even if she did, it wouldn't affect her because she's a female. She doesn't have a penis. But good for her, she doesn't have micropenis. Mix of muscle types, likely more sprinter rather than endurance athlete. Very typical genotype for Europeans. And I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip all of this. No risk variance for pain hypersensitivity out of 12 total. Really good to see. This file is actually really high coverage. And she's got 2.688 times risk of heart failure due to beta blocker medications. Really high risk. Really high risk for this trait. Okay. Let's see what else. She's got a genotype for highest odds for hair loss from chemotherapy. She's got high odds of meth-induced psychosis. Slightly increased odds of cannabis-induced psychosis. This is the ACT1 genotype that I used to mention in my previous videos. Like back last year, actually a year ago, yeah. A year ago, I used to make videos where I would go over samples, and I would always mention this ACT1 SNP about cannabis, tolerance to cannabis and cannabis-induced psychosis. So this is this is the SNP that I'm mentioning right now. So she's got slightly increased odds of cannabis-induced psychosis based on this SNP. This is the SNP that I used to mention like a year ago in my videos. She's got, let's see. She doesn't carry any of the risk variants for albinism. That's really good to see. And she also does not carry risk variants for cleft lip and palate. Nor does she carry a risk variant for Melanesian blonde hair. She doesn't carry any risk variants for familiar Mediterranean fever. She has a risk variant for higher levels of homocysteine in MTHFR and lower efficiency in processing folic acid, lower B12 and folate levels. This is really bad. It says higher odds for variety of illnesses from autism to coronary heart disease, heavy on the coronary heart disease, and this will lead to definitely increased odds of cardiovascular issues for the cardiovascular issues panel. This genotype is really bad, but still, because of the really good genotype, really good results on cardiovascular, because of the good results on here, because of this genotype in MTHFR is not enough to completely ruin the polygenic panel for cardiovascular issues. It's not enough. It is not enough. So, the end result for the cardiovascular issues panel on the polygenic page is still sort of okay. It's still average. But this is a bad genotype. You don't want to have a genotype. This genotype on its own is not a good genotype. However, she does have this other genotype in MTHFR, which is right next to it, which is a good genotype, which is to lower odds of various health issues. Also, very good genotype. She's got lower odds of various epithelial cancers. We went over that. She did have 2 risk variants for breast cancer, and we see that they are in BRCA2. Let's close the leukemia search. Let's look at the rare diseases and traits panel. Does she carry any risk variants for rare diseases? She has a genotype for increased risk of atrial fibrillation and cardioembolic stroke. That's it. Do we see anything else? I don't see anything else. No rare diseases. No rare diseases. Okay. For celiac disease, looks like she does not carry any risk variants in HLA. Actually, no risk variants at all for celiac disease. That's really good. For allergies panel, we're gonna skip that. For androgen receptor gene panel, she's got decreased risk of baldness in AR gene. That's very cool. So this once again is very common for sub-Saharan Africans to have the decreased risk of baldness here. But she's not a sub-Saharan African, she is a Greek, so it's sort of unusual for Greeks to carry the protective variant. I think the A is the protective variant here, the A allele in this variation is the protective variant. So it's very unusual for her as a Greek to carry the protective variant from baldness. Canavan syndrome, no risk variants, HIV and AIDS panel, no protective variants in HLA-C, but everything else is yeah, it's okay. Pretty typical genotype. For HLA gene panel, looks like she's got lower odds of autoimmune disease. Very good. Let's look at the HLA genotypes real quick. Okay, I have no internet. Looks like she's got... My internet is down. Okay, I'm gonna have to fix that. Looks like she's got some risk variants for vitiligo and HLA-A. Looks like she's got genotypes for higher levels of antibodies. That's really good in HLA-A. That's really good. And genotypes for slightly higher levels of multiple sclerosis in HLA-A. That's bad. Not a carrier for any of the HLA-B27 alleles. That's really good. So that's good. Higher antibody levels in HLA-C. That's also good. But no protective variants in HLA-C. That's bad. So there is a mixture of good and the bad, but there is really nothing that's horrible here. Yeah, there's nothing horrible in these HLA results overall. She doesn't carry any risk variants for any conditions like multiple sclerosis or B27 syndromes. So overall, that's good. For MTRR gene panel, looks like she's got no risk variants for anything except for this one variation where she's got slightly higher odds for meningomas and neural tube defects. For CBS panel, wow, okay, so for homocystinuria panel, she's got elevated homocysteine levels, and she actually carries a risk variant for homocystinuria in the CBS gene. And for muscular dystrophy myopathies, she's got no risk variants for that, but she doesn't carry any risk variants for IDL either, no risk variants for adrenoleukodystrophy either. For color blindness panel, she's got one risk variant in OPN1SW, and by the way, OPN1SW is the gene that's on the 7th chromosome. So the thing is, MW and LW are genes on the X. So if you're a female and you have variants for color blindness on LW and MW, and you're heterozygous, you are not going to express the trait, so you're not going to be actually colorblind. You're just going to be carrying the variants because you still have a functioning variant that's not coding for colorblindness, and you're not going to express the pathogenic variant. So you're still going to be seeing full color. But it is not the same if you have variants on the SW, because this one is on the 7th. So here, if you're a female, technically having heterozygous genotype would be enough to express the pathogenic variant. But I'm not sure if one risk variant out of 8 is enough to actually express the phenotype, because I also carry a risk variant for that here. I'm not colorblind, so I don't know. I think you need more than one risk variant to actually express the trait. But anyway, she does carry a risk variant for colorblindness in OPN1SW, and she's got, looks like, intermediate odds of obesity based on FTO and some other genes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 SNPs. She's got predisposition to intermediate odds of obesity. And for syncope, she's got, based on 7 SNPs, lower odds of syncope. For biotraits panel, let's see. She's got a predisposition to wet earwax and normal body odor, normal colostrum, which is typical for non-yeast agents. Let's see, what else can we talk about here? Is there the... I usually talk about the farmer allele. Is it here? I don't see it here. She's less able to detect beta-iodine floral fragrance, which is very interesting. I've read that this is something that comes from the Neanderthals. That I don't know how it does, but I've read that this is something we inherited from the Neanderthals, being able to smell beta-iodine floral fragrance. I'm not sure where that comes from, who discovered that. But anyway, so let's scroll past all of this, and for blood type, she most likely has blood type A at 95% odds. And that's it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed my video. Hope you had fun watching it. Hope you were entertained. Um, you can download this file, this raw genome in 23andMe format. It is a very good quality file. Essentially, all the buy and download links will be in the description of the video. You can purchase my trade predictor tool, which you can use to generate reports like this for any file you want, any raw DNA file. You can generate a DNA report like this. This is the latest version of my trade predictor, version 15-1. Will there be updates to trade predictor? People have been asking me to make an update where I would do, you know, 12 way phenotype oracle and they would be merged together. I don't think I will do that. I'll answer that right now. I don't think I will do that. But you know, you can buy my tool. You can buy my tool online on my H page. It's very cheap, and the files that you can use to run with my tool are also on the H page, also very cheap. And maybe in the future I will do updates. I don't know if I see that there needs to be an update. Maybe I will do an update. Currently I don't see a reason to update it, but maybe in the future. Maybe in the future, if I get bored, I will make another update to my tool. Well, thanks for watching. Make sure you leave a like and share the video if you enjoyed it, and check out the description. And goodbye.